welcome Sergio Chavez Perez, the chair of the Latin America Regional Advisory Committee, and myself will serve as your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, the model for this webinar will be a short presentation, followed by an extended question and answer session. During question and answer session, if you have a question you'd like to ask, please raise your hand on your computer. I will see it and move you to a place where you can actually ask the question yourself directly to our presenter. And so without further ado, let me welcome you to the SEG Latin America Regional Advisory Committee webinar series, A Path to a Career in Geophysics. Our first presenter in this series is Dr. Ruben Martinez, who is a petroleum geoscience consultant and instructor with Reservoir Geoscience, LLC. He has been active in the seismic industry for 40 years. Dr. Martinez was associated with Geophysical Service, Inc. as a research and development reservoir geophysicist, and with Halliburton Geophysical Services and Western Geophysical as senior research geophysicist. Also, with AGI, he was director of seismic reservoir characterization, and with Petroleum Geoservices as manager, signal processing R&D, vice president of processing R&D, and vice president of seismic processing technology. His responsibilities at Petroleum Geoservice include directing global R&D and software commercialization of processing and imaging technologies. As chief geophysicist, he was responsible for the supervision and quality assurance of depth imaging projects, customer liaison, promoting of best practices, and the commercialization and use of high-end technology. Dr. Martinez is author and co-author of more than 70 technical papers published and or presented at international conferences, and 12 patents on seismic data acquisition, processing, and imaging he holds. He has also made numerous technical presentations at international conferences and has taught numerous courses and conducted seminars and workshops on seismic processing and imaging. In 2005, he was invited to present at the annual Milton Dobrin Lecture at the University of Houston. He is currently an instructor in the continuing education program for the Society of Exploration Geophysicists and the European Association of Geoscientists and Engineers. He is a member of the SEG Board of Directors as a director at large. And in 2014, Dr. Martinez was a recipient of the Mexican Association of Exploration Geophysicists Award for Lifelong Achievements in Geophysics. He earned a bachelor's degree in geophysics from the Instituto Político Nacional, his master's from geophysics from the Colorado School of Mines, and a PhD in geosciences from the University of Texas at Dallas. He is a member of SEG, EAGE, the Geophysical Society of Houston, American Association of Petroleum Geologists, and the Mexican Association of Exploration Geophysicists. Welcome, please, Dr. Ruben Martinez.
Thank you, Lori. I hope everybody can hear me. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, today it is a rather informal presentation, what I have here. It is related to my path to a career in geophysics. It is very much what Lori just read about me. However, here I will emphasize more details regarding my career, which are not in the short biography as it was read just a minute ago. So let me start with my origin. I was born in Torreón, Coahuila, Mexico. This is a town located in the northern part of Mexico. Coahuila, the state, has a border with Texas in the USA. So for those who are not familiar with the Mexican geography, this Coahuila makes border with Texas in the US. I lived in Torreón only for a few years during my childhood, until my parents decided that the whole family moved to Ciudad Obregón, Sonora. Sonora is another northern state that has a border with the state of Arizona in the USA. So that's a northwest, in the northwest part of Mexico. As you can tell, I am a norteño. In Mexico, they call people from the north norteños. So that's very typical in the Mexican culture. In Torreon, I attended elementary school until third grade, and then in Obregon, Sonora, I completed the elementary school up to the sixth grade. At that time, during my time, elementary school was having 6 years. I recall that my favorite subject in the last years of the elementary school was history. Specifically, I was very, very fascinated by Greek mythology. So I went ahead and read every little book on Greek mythology because I was very, very attracted to see all those gods the Greek had. So that was a very interesting part of my life. As a child, I loved to play football, soccer in the US, and baseball. Sonora is a land of baseball, so not so much football was played there. So any Argentine, if there is someone in the audience, will get bored in Sonora because football is not really the, the, the best sport to play there. There are so few teams. Okay, moving along my years in middle and high school. When I attended middle school, called Escuela Secundaria in Mexico, the school had an emphasis on technical education. In fact, it was very focused on technical aspects, which was good for me because during this 3-year period, I started to learn and understand electricity and mechanics. And I recall I used to love to attend the lab sessions. They were very interesting. Actually, I recall all that like yesterday. I remember that I was having already signs of liking physics. So that's probably something that I had to, excuse me, that is something I had to accept that physics was starting to have started to be one of the things I liked the most. After 3 years of middle school, I began high school, which is called preparatoria in Mexico. At the time, I was already thinking about what I should choose to study in college. My mother wanted me to be a medical doctor. So in high school, there were 3 paths to prepare for college: arts and sciences, social sciences, and physical and mathematical sciences. Perhaps today, high school is not like organized in this way, but during my time, this is the way it was. So in order to get into medical school in college, you had to enroll into the arts and sciences path in high school. So in that way, I could probably please my mom if I could have entered there. But unfortunately, there were no available slots in that path of arts and sciences. So the only slots available were in physical and mathematical sciences, which I did not have any choice but to get enrolled in them. So my mom was very disappointed with me. However, I can say something right now that was one of the best decisions I have ever made. During the 2 years in high school, I discovered that I liked physics and mathematics a lot. So that was an extremely good decision in my life. Now, what about my years in university? Okay, after 2 years in high school, I was 16 years old and moved to Mexico City. Moving to Mexico City was a shock for me because the population in my hometown was about 50,000 people, whereas in Mexico City it was around 16 million at the time. So you can imagine a 16-year-old boy in that big city, I mean, with some friends, but it was really shocking. I mean, I wanted to go back. I mean, but anyway, I just stayed there. So my aim was to get enrolled in petroleum engineering at the Instituto Politécnico Nacional. But another challenge appeared. There were no slots available in the program. I was late already. So I was extremely disappointed with that because petroleum engineering was sort of attractive to me because of the engineering part more than the petroleum. The engineering part contained a lot of physics and mathematics, which I loved at the time. However, in a hallway conversation in the Politécnico Nacional with other students, they mentioned me a new program called Engineering Geo. And I got very, very intrigued. I said, this sounds very interesting, geophysics. I was wondering what geophysics was. Then I met the program coordinator, Neri España. Neri explained me what geophysics was all about. I remember I felt very fascinated with geophysics almost instantly. The hybrid nature of geophysics, which combined physics, mathematics, and geology, made my day, that very day that I met with Neri España. Neri was looking for students since the program was starting the second year, so it was a very new program. Very few people knew about geophysics. So I got enrolled in the program and went through this exciting 4-year journey. Neri became my first mentor over the 4 years until I graduated. I ended with a bachelor's degree in engineering geophysics with honors, and the next challenge was to find a job. So my first job at GSI Mexico. One of my dreams after graduation was to work for Pemex. However, I was not accepted. At the time, the positions in Pemex were given to individuals that had recommendations, and I did not have one. So I was not one of the chosen ones at that time. I was very disappointed and needed money to survive. In the big city, you need money to survive. So I had to accept a part-time position as a technician to cut and fold maps all day long in Pemex in order to get some pesos. I was considering to quit and return to Sonora and do something else at that time. However, one day in Pemex, being in Pemex, in the Pemex office, one day Andres Ramirez, manager of GSI Mexico, who I did not know, visited my boss, Franco Paez, and asked him if he knew a couple of geophysicists to start working immediately in a seismic crew in Veracruz. So Franco responded, here I have one, Ruben. And Andres asked me if I was interested, and I said yes, immediately. He gave me a business card, and the next day I was in his office. He said, see me at 8 a.m., but I was there at 7 a.m. waiting for him. So I was needing a job. Andres explained me what GSI was and did. GSI stands for Geophysical Service Inc., a very famous company during the 80s and 90s. Extremely good company, I will say. He wanted me to support the seismic crew in the interpretation of refraction arrivals to calculate near surface velocities for static corrections. He asked me during the interview meeting if 700 a month was fine with me. I said, it's okay, but it is a little low, don't you think? Well, he said, this is a starting salary. $700 is an average pay for starting field geophysics, he said. Then I said, dollars? Oh my God. I thought he meant 700 pesos, so that's why I thought it was too low. But $700, the dollar exchange was $12.50 at the time. So that's a lot of money for someone that didn't have any money. So I said, where do I sign? I was extremely happy, to say the least. So the next step was to fly to Veracruz. It was an exciting day for me because it was the first time I boarded an airplane in my life. So I even wanted to give the flight attendant a tip. Once I got a coffee, I want to give a tip to the flight attendant because I had never been in an airplane, so I didn't know what was going on. So I thought I had to give a couple of pesos to the flight attendant because she was serving coffee. Obviously, everybody laughed about me at that time. So that was an anecdote that I will never forget. Anyway, GSI Mexico and my master's degree. In 1975, when I was already in GSI, I became an SPE member. let me tell you, being an SEG member has brought me many, many professional benefits. So if you are not an SEG member, I suggest that you join the, as soon as possible. Okay, working for GSI, working for GSI was the best it happened to me because it was a company which was technologically advanced, and I could learn quite a lot being a very young geophysicist. GSI commercialized the 3D seismic method. For those who are young, the 3D seismic method was commercialized by Geophysical Servicing during the late 60s, early 70s, more or less. I learned a lot from many geophysicists in the company. You can imagine that. I cannot list all of them because there are just too many. After about 1 year as a field geophysicist in Veracruz, Andres assigned me to the seismic interpretation group in Mexico City. Again, I learned a lot in this new capacity. After 1 year as an interpreter, I decided to apply to the Colorado School of Mines, where after 2 years, I graduated with a Master of Science in Geophysics. GSI financially supported me, thanks to Andres. Actually, it was the CONACYT in Mexico. However, the CONACYT was forcing me to return the money for my scholarship sooner or later, and I was scared because the number was too big. So Andres talked to me and said, no problem, GSI will pay CONACYT everything you own them. So you can imagine how I felt. I mean, that was a very, very nice gesture on the GSI part, and not only from GSI, but Andres was the person who really did this. Andres was the best coach and mentor I have had in my career. He was great. He taught me a lot of geophysics and promoted me within GSI to advance very quickly in my first 2 years. After obtaining my Master of Science, Andres offered me to move back to Mexico to run the GSI Processing Center. I accepted the offer. At the time, I was also teaching geophysics at the Polytechnico in the evenings. I was not interested in the extra money, but just to transfer what I learned at the Colorado School of Mines to the students. So then GSI Dallas and my PhD degree. After 2 years of running the GSI Processing Center in Mexico, Andres asked me if I would be interested in moving to the GSI headquarters in Dallas to join the GSI phase 2 group as a reservoir geophysicist. My answer was yes. I was so excited to join a highly qualified team and have the opportunity to learn more. The phase 2 group was dedicated to quantitative interpretation. After 1 year in the GSI phase 2 group in Dallas, I was transferred to the GSI R&D group as a research reservoir geophysicist. I was already in the elite of Texas Instruments / GSI, so I was feeling just great. I mean, I was learning a lot every day with a lot of people around me, a lot of smart people around me. This was a prolific time for me. I developed a number of inversion algorithms to estimate rock and fluid properties from seismic data, and I also published quite a bit of papers that are in my list. During this time, I enrolled as a special student in the Geosciences Department of the University of Texas at Dallas. My interest was to improve my understanding of seismic processing and imaging. For 2 years, I took many courses in the evenings, as during the day, I had to work at GSI. So at one point, George McMecan, my advisor, told me, Ruben, you have already earned enough credits to get your PhD. I said, but George, I do not have the number of credits for a PhD. He then said, well, if we add the Master of Science credits from the Colorado School of Mines to what you have now, you are 3 credits away from your PhD, assuming you work and write a PhD dissertation. I told George, forget it. A dissertation takes many years, and I am too busy at GSI at work. I mean, so he said, talk to GSI and try to combine a research topic to get it done. Ruben, this is a great opportunity. That's what George said. So I went back to GSI and finally we came up with a topic that could be of interest to GSI. And after 4 years, I completed my dissertation on full waveform viscoelastic inversion in 1D. That's perhaps one of the very early algorithms on full waveform inversion that is today very, very common, and you hear that every day in the literature. The issue is that I did it in 1D. It's like saying viscoelastic AVO based on inverse modeling. Okay, that's another way of reading this. This work is published in Geophysical Prospecting in a twin paper in 1991 for those who are interested in investigating a little more on this. Okay, my years at HGS, WG, and PGS. Okay, HGS stands for Halliburton Geophysical Services. That is the company that bought GSI in the late 80s. I was transferred to the processing R&D group in HGS. My position was senior processing R&D geophysicist. So that was a rewarding experience to be now in processing after being many years in reservoir geophysics. I had the opportunity to develop a number of algorithms for noise attenuation, time velocity analysis, multiple attenuation, decon, and all those good technologies that we see today in software packages. Later HGS was acquired by Western Geophysical, where I continued to be in the research department. However, I lasted just around 1 year at Western, so I needed new challenges at this point in my career. Then I became a consultant, where I was really doing for a small company, was to direct a geosciences group to do reservoir characterization using all sorts of data, engineering data, geology data, and geophysical data, putting it together to get the static model of the reservoirs. So after 2 years, PGS hired me to run the PGS signal processing R&D group. This was my first experience as a leader. I had to develop my leadership skills, reading a lot and getting company training. So after many years of working on reservoir geophysics R&D and processing R&D, my opportunity came to work on seismic imaging at PGS. I became team leader for the seismic imaging group, which was extremely interesting because imaging was the area that I was still lacking at the time in my career. After a few years, I was promoted to run the PGS Seismic Processing Technology Organization. This was a big challenge, as I had to run an organization of around 60 very smart people around the world in the PGS R&D offices. So all the PGS processing and imaging technology R&D was under my direction. This lasted for about 8 years in the 2000s. Then I became global chief geophysicist for PGS. This was a very interesting position where I had to use all my experience, not only technical, but also in how I communicated with people in the company and in the industry in general. This is what I consider where all your experience goes into one aspect of your career, which is not only technical, but also you develop skills to communicate with people, which is extremely important. Okay, so where am I now after all this career path? Well, and how do I see myself in the future? I'm now a petroleum geoscience consultant and instructor. I enjoy very much the freedom I have, but more importantly, I like to teach. I have already several courses. As part of my consulting work, I am always delighted to coach or mentor emerging or mid-career professionals in their geophysical and geoscience projects. This is one thing I really enjoy a lot. I also share my time with the SEG. I am a member of the board of directors. I enjoy very much this volunteering work. Let me tell you, it is really fun. Contributing with the SEG gives me a great pleasure. It is also a lot of fun to work with the board members and SEG staff. I cannot predict the future, but I can say that full retirement is not in my plans. On the contrary, I would like to have more time to stay abreast of the latest geophysical advances. In the short term, I want to get back to do R&D myself here in my home. I have a small system, so I can do R&D here. I have a notebook that documents many geophysical ideas I have had in the last 35 years or so. They are about 500, some good ones and some not so good. So I will implement a few to contribute to the geophysical community. I hope they are interesting enough for everybody. So what are my success secrets? I want to share with you what has happened in what I have used in my 43-year career in order to be successful. Of course, I have had many times I have had setbacks as everybody, right? But I think to be positive, I would like to share with you what are my secrets. The first one, and most important perhaps, is that I have a great passion for geophysics. There is nothing else that attracts me in the science than geophysics. The second thing is that I am perseverant. In applied geophysics, you have to be perseverant. Not always the exploration and production problems are solved in the first attempt. So you have to be resourceful and innovative to get the job done. I never expect rewards and recognition. That's another thing that has been clear during my 43-year career. I have had some rewards, but I never sought them really. I mean, not having rewards and recognition is not bad, as someone might think. It makes you more resilient. So it is good to be having these kind of challenges in life. So I always follow a coach or mentor. So I suggest that you find your coach and or mentor. I mean, this is an excellent way to succeed in every project. I am disciplined to learn and understand new geophysical developments. I read one technical paper a week. This is a discipline I adopted since I started my career. I also like to read other subjects, of course. My favorites are novels and biographies, but one geophysical paper a week is a discipline I have. If for some reason that week I'm too busy and I don't read it, then it accumulates for the next week and makes two and so on until I get rid of that pile of papers that I have on my desk ready to be read. So let me tell you, this discipline has brought me a lot of understanding in many things, but more importantly, it has kept me up to date in my career. So my last slide is for the students that may be in the audience. I would like to tell them this quote from the grandfather of Martin Roux. You can find this in the online. Never just remember how to do something, understand how it works, okay? The meaning of this quote is that when you know how to do something, you have a skill. For example, if you know how to run a deconvolution program, how to run a program to compute seismic attributes, that means you have a skill. But that doesn't mean that you understand what you are doing, okay? It may be that your attributes that you see don't have any meaning, and then you don't understand what's going on. So you have a skill to actually calculate those attributes, but you still need to develop the understanding to see how something works, okay? So what are the limitations of these attributes? Where are they coming from noise, from signal, and so on. So understanding is what it will keep you alive during your career. The skills come and go, Okay, you can learn a software package A today, and tomorrow you may learn B, and a day after tomorrow you may learn C. But those are skills. However, when you understand something, it stays in your brain for the whole life, for all your life, and that's what it is really important in this career. With this, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open for questions at this time.
I guess I'll start, Ruben. I have a question.
Sure.
You talk about finding a mentor and advisor. Are there any particular things to look out for when you're trying to identify someone who will fit well with you but have good insight?
Well, what it has worked for me is that I always start getting closer to that person that will really be my coach or mentor, using a technique of asking a lot of questions. I have been a very inquisitive person all my life, so whenever I am in the office in a regular day, I start seeing people and asking a lot of questions. The person that will actually answer those questions for me with enthusiasm and with the wish of really helping me is the person that is starting to align to be my coach. So after some time, you detect that person and you just get with that person, and that person is your mentor or your coach. Being a coach is a different thing from being a mentor. Mentor is more informal. It's a kind of coffee meeting to talk about things, and then it is up to you if you do the things. Okay, coaching is more like, look, you need to do these things this way and that way, and then you go and do them. Okay, so those are two different things that are commonly confused in not only in our industry but everywhere. So.
I guess I have another question.
Sure.
For the students in the audience, what areas do you feel are going to be more dominant in the future that maybe they should keep an eye out for?
Areas, you mean technical areas?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting question. And by the way, what I was going to say, Lori, is if someone wants to ask questions in Spanish, that is not a problem, okay? We can switch to Spanish. Just in case someone is not ready to ask questions in English. So anyway, to answer your question, which is very important, in my opinion, looking at these big data volumes that we deal with these days, okay, let's talk about seismic. They are huge data sets. So visualization is an important aspect that is today being used everywhere in the offices, in the E&P offices. However, the future tends to be machine learning, okay, which is a part of artificial intelligence. So if there is a student in the audience that wants to really try to define what to really get into at the university, I will strongly suggest to just be a geophysicist, but with a strong bias to these very automatic techniques to detect anomalies, to process data, to QC data, for example, pattern recognition techniques, okay, in order to identify stratigraphic features in the seismic data. That's an example. Another thing that machine learning can help you is to try to set up some criteria to QC processing steps, for example, and so on. So that area of artificial intelligence, which is not there yet, artificial intelligence as such, but we see a very important trend in machine learning, which is a part of artificial intelligence, but that one is closer to geophysics, and I think that's an excellent decision for a career path. Now, if you are trying to be a leader, then in parallel to getting technically prepared, then you need to also take training in leadership, so you can acquire leadership skills. You can communicate better with people. Actually, one of the biggest weaknesses in our community, geophysical community, is that our people, our bright technical guys, do not know how to communicate very well. Sometimes they struggle also to present papers, technical papers. So one way to really get a well-rounded professional out of university is to try to have this parallel training. I mean, like technical, very strong technical training, but also at the same time, try to polish your soft skills, right? Like leadership, training on communication and so on. So that will help the professional very well in the future. Are you there, Lori?
Yes, we have a gentleman who would like to ask a question.
Yes.
Alfonso?
Ah, Alfonso. Oh, claro que lo conozco.
Hi, Ruben. How are you?
I am fine, Alfonso. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Very nice talk. And I was asking via the chat about if you have mentoring young people than you, students, or maybe people younger than you. And if you did that, what is your experience about that?
Okay, I have done that, Alfonso, many, many, many times. Many of the geophysicists that are now those people really solving big problems were under my direction at some point when they were recently hired from university, and they were all afraid of things, you know. So my experience, as you ask, okay, is that you take a young person, okay, and as Lori called them, emerging professional, and then you start just guiding, right? I mean, you don't push, you just guide, okay? You offer your suggestion. That's mentoring, basically. I mean, you say, don't use this white noise level in your decon imaging condition because it is too large. Then the person decides whether or not uses that advice. But when you coach, which is the other aspect, okay, is that you say you need to use this kind of white noise level because this you go to the blackboard, to the whiteboard, and explain why, right? So you are coaching the person to do that, whatever it is recommended. Mentoring is more, it is up to you, right? I'm just telling you as a guideline what to do. But if you consider that is not right, then you take it. So in the mentoring area, to answer your question, I had lots of people under me, and I am very pleased to report that many of them are very bright geophysicists today in many companies. So 43 years is a long time, and you and I are more or less contemporaneous, so you know what that is. I mean, you meet a lot of people. So anyway, I hope I could answer your question.
All right, we have another question from Sergio.
Yeah, I'm curious about this. What has helped? Because I often get an equivalent question from younger people. What has helped you the most during your career to be a rather competent professional? You mentioned a few things, but what's the most relevant?
The most relevant has been, I think, my passion for geophysics. I'm just so passionate. I mean, I am always thinking about new ideas. I am always thinking about if I attend, for example, an SCG paper presentation, it is very rare if I don't get out from the conference room with just an idea saying, well, this guy presented this technique, but it could be done in this way. And then I go back to my computer and then try a few things and then check if my idea is better or equal or worse than what it was presented. That's just an example of how passionate I am about geophysics. The second one is being perseverant. I mean, I put it in the list. I mean, that's another one that I am a very stubborn person in the sense that I don't quit very easily. When I am coaching emerging professionals at work, sometimes they tend to quit a little bit early from the problem they are trying to solve. And then I said, no, wait a minute. We need to go back and understand why this technique or this processing step is not working. Ruben, but we have tried this A, B, C. No, but let's try D. I mean, until we find a way to solve this. So being stubborn is a characteristic I have, but I call it being perseverant. I mean, so I don't give up very easily when it's a matter of solving a geophysical problem.
Okay, thank you. We have another person who would like to ask a question. Pablo, please go ahead.
Pablo, ¿cómo estás? Pablo?
Oh, hang on.
I think he's muted.
Keep trying to unmute him. Maybe we're both trying to unmute each other. Unmute him. He's in a panelist position. Pablo, could you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, he's on. Hola, Pablo. Pablo?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Pablo.
Okay, I experienced some difficulties into the connection. I'm connecting through my computer at home.
Okay.
I really, first of all, I really enjoy your summary of your career. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. And I have a very specific question about the future and what you think about that. I've heard that oil and gas is an industry from the past. Yes, I've heard it many times. And as such, students may not be so motivated to join the oil and gas industry compared to other sectors with better press or community support. What would you tell to young people in order to motivate them to select exploration geophysics?
Well, from the science point of view, okay, of applied geophysics, I will say it is an exciting career. Okay. Now, if the person wants to be a petroleum geophysicist, then obviously the industry is always very volatile, going up, going down. However, the challenges that you see in petroleum geophysics are still very, very important. So to me, there are still enough problems in the petroleum industry to really have probably several generations of geophysicists. The oil will not go away. It is still the energy, the it's still the energy that is used around the world. So I don't foresee really in the short term that the industry, the petroleum industry will be in trouble. But I'm not really, I would like to encourage the emerging professionals or young geophysicists or young people to enter into exploration geophysics, not from the point of view of becoming always a petroleum geophysicist. You can be a mining geophysicist, you can be a geothermal geophysicist, you can be, you can choose many from many other disciplines. You know, there is a lot of activity right now in water exploration, for example. There are many areas in the world that requires very advanced technology, like full waveform inversion for the near surface, in order to understand where the water is. I mean, and then try to help communities with that. So it has a lot of also social content. Geophysics has a lot of social content. So I will not really worry as a young person. Trying to enter into exploration geophysics, I will not worry too much about what it is going to happen to the petroleum industry. I will be more inclined to think if geophysics is something that attracts me. Okay, do I like physics? Do I like geology? Do I like mathematics? Well, then you are right on. That's what my history. You saw my career history. Really, I was lining up along the physical and mathematical sciences at the beginning. So when I discovered that geology, physics, and mathematics were combined to form geophysics, I said, this is it. There is no other one that will really get me attracted, you know. If you remember in my presentation, I mean, my mother wanted me to be a medical doctor. I probably could have been an awful doctor. I mean, because unless I could have worked probably in imaging, MRIs, X-rays, or things like that, probably. but otherwise, the young person, that young professional, or the person that wants to get into university should always think, do I like physics? Do I like mathematics, geology, geosciences? If the answer is yes, then you need to get in. You need to get in. Forget about whether the petroleum industry, the mining industry are in trouble or not trouble. That's completely something nobody can control. Okay. So I hope Pablo, this answers your question. If not, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very clear. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Sergio, do you have any last questions for Ruben?
Yes, I just wrote it down. On a personal side, what about your current hobbies? Has something changed after retirement? I mean, partial retirement. What's new in your life? Other than the impressive career that you described, what can be more, how I can explain myself? What can be more rewarding once you've been rewarded for so many years?
Well, today family time is very important for me. Okay, perhaps that's the top priority. But in regards to hobbies, I mean, I like to read other things than other things than geophysics. I mean, I love to read biographies a lot. I mean, I like to read biographies on people that inspire me, and novels. I mean, the classical Latin American authors. I mean, it is always very interesting to read novels. And I don't play soccer anymore or football. But until when I was doing my PhD in Dallas, I was in a football team. So that was another passion I had. I mean, playing football. I mean, but you know that the body sometimes says enough is enough, and you stop. So regarding sports, I don't have any sports. I don't play golf, as probably someone might imagine that. So anyway, those are the kind of hobbies. I mean, I like to watch movies a lot. I mean, here at home we have a small room that we converted that to the small theater, so we have a nice environment to watch movies. So we spend a lot of time doing those things.
All right, one last call for additional questions. All right, well, thank you very much, Ruben. It's been very interesting, very exciting life I think you've had in the geophysics career that you've chosen. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and I'll see you next time.
All righty. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.